Now we have the next optoelectronic junction device called light emitting diode, shortly called LED. We are all familiar with LED. An LED consists of a PN junction diode kept in a transparent container. LED is always operated in forward biased state. When an LED is forward biased, we know since it is an ordinary PN junction diode, current will be passing through the diode. And when the majority charge carriers, when they cross the junction, there are chances of recombination. That means free electrons may combine with the holes. So they become bound electron. In that process, actually, an amount of energy will be liberated. This process is taking place in all the PN junction diodes. But that energy liberated may not belong to visible light. In that way, we cannot see that particular light emitted by the PN junction diode. If we properly choose the semiconducting material with which the diode is to be made, so that the energy emitted during recombination, they belong to visible light. In that case, we can see that light emitted. That is how an LED is fabricated. We choose the semiconducting material in such a way that its band gap energy, it is in the range of the energy of visible light. So, as a result of recombination of free electron with the holes, the energy emitted will belong to visible light region, and we can see that particular light. And if we enclose the arrangement in a transparent container, we can see the light emitted and we can use that arrangement as a source of light. That is the theory behind LED. When the LED is forward biased, we have already discussed that it emits light. How it emits light? According to band theory, the electrons from the bottom of the conduction band, it falls down to the top of the valence band. We have already discussed that what is happening during forward biasing of an LED. Actually, free electrons, they combine with holes to form a bound electron. So according to band theory, energy band theory, this is what is happening. An electron which was in the conduction band, it falls to the valence band. So during that process, it emits a photon whose energy is equal to difference in energy. That difference in energy will be the energy gap or band gap energy. So a photon whose energy is equal to band gap energy will be emitted. So the equation we can write, that is band gap energy equal to h nu, where nu is the frequency of photon emitted. Therefore, nu is equal to Eg by h. So this equation shows that frequency of light emitted, it depends on band gap, and that is how we say the color of light emitted from the LED depends on the nature of semiconductor used. Now, to produce visible light, the LEDs should be made with semiconductors having band gap of 1.8 electron volt to 3 electron volt. This 1.8 electron volt to 3 electron volt is the energy band, or we can say that band of energies for visible light, ranging from red to violet. Red is having energy 1.8 electron volt and violet is the most energetic one, that is with a 3 electron volt. So this band gap energy should be between 1.8 electron volt to 3 electron volt. The compound semiconductor gallium arsenide phosphide. Pay attention to that chemical formula, that means gallium GaAs 1 minus X Px. So that X stands for that composition actually. So actually this compound is used to make colored LEDs. So by changing that value of X, we'll get different colored LEDs. For example, if that X is 0.4, the compound is gallium As 0.6, P 0.4. Its band gap energy is 1.9 electron volt and it emits red light. So like that, different colored LEDs are used, or different colored LEDs are made using this particular compound. Gallium arsenide, whose band gap is 1.4 electron volt, is used for making infrared LEDs. Infrared LEDs are common in remote controls and all. The IV characteristics of LED is similar to that of PN junction diode. We already mentioned it is working in forward biased state. So only forward characteristic it has. So the curves come in the first quadrant, and different colored LEDs will have different IV characteristics as shown in figure. And this is the symbol of LED. Nowadays, LED lamps are very common, and these LED lamps have the following advantages over conventional incandescent low power lamps. First one, low operational voltage and less power consumption. First, fast action and no warm up time required. That means the moment we switch on, the bulb will lit up. The light emitted is nearly monochromatic. That means the wavelength of light emitted, it is same, and it has got long life and fast on-off switching capability. Now the next optoelectronic junction device is solar cell. A solar cell is basically a PN junction which generates EMF when solar radiation falls on the PN junction. It works on the same principle as that of photodiode, except that no external bias is applied. Solar panel is a collection of solar cells actually. Now let's discuss the structure of a solar cell. It consists of p-type silicon and n-type silicon, and it has a junction also. So when it is exposed to light, light is allowed to reach the junction. As connecting leads, it has a back contact and a front contact. Metallic painting at the back side on the P region acts as the back contact, and a metal finger electrode or metallic grid act as the front contact. Metal finger electrode or metallic grid is used as the front contact to make sure that this contact occupies very small fraction of the cell area, so that light falls on almost all the area of the solar cell. For the maximum exposure of the PN junction to this light, that is the function of this metallic finger electrode or metallic grid, which is used as the front contact. The same three-step processes is taking place in the working of solar cell. That means when the light falls at the junction, free electron hole pairs are generated, and due to the electric field at the junction, they are separated and they are collected by the collecting leads at the two ends. The same process as in the case of photodiode. It is taking place in solar cell also. So if we connect the two leads to an external device, say a bulb, the bulb, you can see that it glows. It is because of the high potential difference provided by this solar cell. So compared to photodiode, this solar cell, it can provide more EMF. Because of the more photovoltaic action taking place at the junction, more charge carriers are moving, which produces more current flow in the solar cell. So it's enough to connect an external load resistor for the current to flow. When we analyze the graph between energy of the incoming photon and intensity of light, we can see that there lies a maximum at an energy 1.5 electron volt. That means most of the photons reaching on the surface of Earth, it has an energy around 1.5 electron volt. And the materials which we are using for making solar cells, they have the band gap energies as shown, 1.11 to 1.49, it varies. How we choose the materials like this? It is from that graph which we took. Again, it shows that 1.5 is the maximum, and if we choose any material which is having band gap energy more than that, most of the solar radiation will be wasted. That means it cannot be converted to useful photocurrent. But if you are choosing a material whose band gap energy is less than 1.5 electron volt, we can make sure that almost all the solar radiation falling on the semiconducting material is converted to photocurrent. There is one more consideration in choosing the material. That means the light falling on the N-type semiconductor should reach the junction. That means that semiconductor material should have high optical absorptivity. So the criteria for choosing materials for making solar cells are: the band gap should lie in the range 1 electron volt to 1.8 electron volt, and high solar radiation absorption capacity it should have, and it should have good electrical conductivity and the ease of availability and cost. Solar cells are made with semiconducting materials like silicon, gallium arsenide, cadmium telluride, etc. The IV characteristics of a solar cell is as shown. Here VOC stands for open circuit voltage. Open circuit means no load is connected, just the terminal potential difference. That means the potential difference between P and N side. Next we have ISC, which is short circuit current. Short circuit current means with a low resistance wire we are connecting both P and N side. So the current flowing through the wire is called as short circuit current, and the graph is as shown, and the graph comes in the fourth quadrant.